and restore some order to, I'm sure, what will be a lively debate. Obviously, everyone who likes to do this hasn't seen the sort of order I have at home and how many people actually listen to what I say. Not many. So, I thought what I'd do, just by way of introduction, and so you can see where everyone stands in the panel, just asking a general question about what your views are on the personal versus the professional on social networks. So we'll start with you, Adrian.
All right, can everyone hear me? All right.
No.
I can speak louder. It seems like if I just stood up and spoke, it might be louder than the microphone. But anyway, great to be here in Australia. So what I think about personal versus private, I speak mostly to legal professionals that are trying to get their name out, to get attention, and frankly, it's an extremely competitive marketplace out there. And if you just talk business all the time, frankly, that's fairly boring. So I think your personal brand has to be somewhat about you, your personal life. There's a lawyer in Italy that I was working with, and everything about it seemed fairly boring until he told me he was a professional tango dancer. And so I said, look, you got to spin that, make that part of who you are. So now his Twitter profile says, fluent in 4 languages, serious IP lawyer, serious tango dancer, right? So he's building a brand around who he is and that persona, even though he's also a serious, sophisticated professional. So that's kind of my take on private versus professional.
Damien?
Hi, I think a lot of you know me. My name's Damien. I work in the wonderful field of advertising, which is an area which seems increasingly advertising, marketing, comms, where it's one of the first industries where you're really seeing this blur between a personal presence online and a professional presence online, where you are expected to simultaneously be advocates on behalf of the brands that you're representing who are your clients, as well as censor yourself from saying anything negative or derogatory or even often commentary on the brands that you're representing. And so we're seeing in our industry especially a lot of this coming closer and closer together. So I believe that a lot of this stuff needs to be very explicitly put down in paper by employers, which is slowly beginning to happen, especially guys over at Telstra after some of their experiences with certain people over there have managed to start putting stuff down in paper. But I believe this is an area we still need to very much ratify and figure out, all right, where do we draw those lines, where do those boundaries exist, and how much leeway do we give either side of that?
Sam.
I agree with him. It just depends. I mean, if it's private, it's private. If you're talking about your clients, you've got a problem, because if you're talking about them negatively, then why should you talk about them? Why should you be allowed to talk about clients negatively? I mean, it doesn't happen in any other industry. It hasn't happened throughout history. Why is the social media different? I don't know.
Sam actually probably the only person in this room who doesn't have a Twitter account. So I told him to be gentle.
You won't hold it just there. I think for me, it really depends on the degree to which you're seeking to use social networking as something to gain influence in your community, whatever community that might be. If you are seeking to gain influence through social networking, then if you don't put yourself on Twitter or whatever it is, especially Twitter, you don't put your personality out there, you're not going to get anywhere. But if you're not that concerned about gaining influence using those methods, well, then you can safely keep yourself in the way and you won't gain influence and you probably won't be upset by it. So.
How many people in the room actually have private Twitter accounts? Okay, that's quite a significant number. How many of them have anonymous Twitter accounts? So they can't be traced to you. No one knows who bought on
In addition to that,
and how many people have on their Twitter accounts who they work for? And how many of you have a disclaimer that the views on your Twitter account are yours and yours alone? Okay, so this is my question to the panel. If we do put that on our Twitter account, the views of mine and not those of my employees, where does that leave us? And are we protected by just putting that on our blog? Is it in fact something we should be doing? I don't know who wants to answer that.
I'll start because I've got the microphone. I think you should put who you work for on your Twitter account, because if you don't put it on your Twitter account, the journalists are going to find it out anyway, and everyone's going to know. So you might as well just put it out there straight away. And if you're concerned about saying stuff on behalf of your employer, well, you work for them and you know where the line is. Most people know the line is. So be honest about it, and if there's a line, tell people there's a line and you can't cross it, and people will accept that. Just be honest.
At Ogilvy, we, and I presume like most of the other companies, we've got a social media guidelines for people using social media within the company. And they're pretty strict guidelines. But in the preamble we say that these guidelines do not apply to employee personal use of social media where there is no reference to Ogilvy PR related issues. But then earlier than that, we define Ogilvy PR related issues as talking, these guidelines to use when talking about Ogilvy PR, its products and services, its people, its competitors, and or business related individuals or organisations. Now, that means that if you're going to write about an Ogilvy, someone we work for or we work with, then you're going to have to be very careful about what you say because you'll be in breach of the guidelines. And I think that will be the same for virtually all of them.
I agree with what Sam says, but the part of the problem is, in relation to this, I think, is that that guideline's fine in saying that, okay, well, I put a disclaimer on my Twitter or whatever saying that the stuff I say here is nothing to do with my employer, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, we're constantly told that people tell us, and, you know, we do it, we link all these profiles together and we say that, well, you know, my Twitter's in one way or another linked through to my LinkedIn, which is linked into my Facebook, which is this and that. And so all of a sudden, it's reasonable to expect that anyone can find one portion, one facet of your online presence will be able to find the entire trail that links back. So are you responsible for something you say on Facebook, which you might have locked down and might be a highly personalised area where you've said, I don't talk about my employer here, I don't put my employer's name, but you know what, Telstra's a client of ours and I said, man, I had shit service today. Are you suddenly responsible for that across your entire digital portfolio? Because on your Twitter account, it says that you work for Ogilvy and Telstra is your client. It becomes an increasingly grey area because this isn't like the real life where, well, if your business card doesn't say you work for PR, Ogilvy PR, if you've just got a business card that says, hi, I'm Sam, nice to meet you, therefore nobody knows. On the online one, it's all connected together. It's all part of one big footprint. It's all under Google. So that, you know, then what happens? Do you want to do it?
Social media has grown exponentially over the last 10 years or so. And I feel in many ways it's, the law hasn't caught up with it, although it's just catching up now. Social media is said to be a conversation, but it's also publication. And I think that what's happening now is that the laws of publication and the things that restrict us in publication, and I've spent most of my life as a journalist, and I can tell you the laws of the restrictions on publication are enormous. That right now, social media is finding out that there are restrictions, and those restrictions will continue to apply. So, what I say in a conversation about Telstra around the dinner table is one thing, and that's obviously free speech and I'm able to say it in a private capacity. But what I say on Twitter or on Facebook about it is publication. And so if they get back the fact that I'm from Ogilvy, then I think I have a right to expect to be treated differently.
You might have to throw to our lawyer who'll be logging especially from the US.